All right, let me start, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulihi nabil kareem wa ala alihi ashabihi ajma'in. Thank you very much for being patient and joining us for this unique webinar. We have invited a very well-known name of Islamic finance industry, Mr. Mughees Shaukat, with a unique personality. He has influenced in the industry and he himself have become a trademark. Let me try to put some light on his achievements. He's a global finance, Islamic finance strategist, policy advisor, fintech specialist, MIT, USA, and pioneer head of Islamic finance CBFS under Central Bank of Oman. He's a PhD scholar in economics and finance, specializing in entrepreneurship and policies for entrepreneurial ecosystem. MashaAllah, Mughees Shaukat has himself so far founded, created, organized, and delivered over 15 international conferences, seminars, symposium, and forums. He is also a chair and co-chair in multiple international conferences. Besides advisories and strategy as pioneer head of Islamic finance in Oman, he has delivered specialized training, designed multiple curricula, and over 40 certifications program, including novel programs on leadership in Islamic finance, entrepreneurship, and venture capital, media, marketing, CRM, the Islamic banking regulatory framework, Oman, climate change, and fintech programs in finance and Islamic finance. Before I call him, I will ask Mr. Zia to invite Mr. Mughees and start the session.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu was-salamu ala rasulih nabil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you very much, Ehsan, for the nice introduction, and thank you very much all for your participation. Today again we are with our friend and brother Mughees with another interesting topic. I hope most of you would not have forgotten his passionate discussion that we had, the webinar that we had earlier with him. And today is another topic that he will be dealing. And like Brother Mughees was making fun of me that every day, these days you are having nice and fancy backgrounds. So I was telling him that I'm trying now to give some perspectives through the background so that people watching at the background have some story for them to tell. So that could be my contribution in the webinars. So today's background that you see is the most important thing that I think we need to take care of these days. What you see behind me is the earth, and all this climate change, the home that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for us as human beings, and what we had been doing with this earth and causing so many issues and concerns and problems for us. So the topic today, so I see I put this background today to highlight the most important thing, and this is what we will be talking today. The topic for today is bracing for climate change in the times of multipolarity, SDGs, and pandemic. And there cannot be anybody else better to talk on this subject than Brother Mughees Shaukat. Thank you very much, Brother Mughees, for your time once again today. The mic is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Zia Bhai. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the folks who are joining us from different time zones internationally. Again, it's an extreme pleasure for me to again participate and contribute my thought process and my share, as a matter of fact, in the endeavors and very, very fine endeavors of TAIF itself. I repeat myself, like I did the last time, that TAIF is a body that I'm really fond, very interesting in their approach, in their product delivery, and what they do, and that sort of appeals to me. And whenever there is a request or there is something that of synergy, and I always feel very much obliged to be a part of, and this occasion is another evidence, another fine evidence of the overall synergy that I carry with TAIF, and how much I appreciate the works that TAIF is doing. As rightly mentioned by you, Zia Saab, that this is a session that carries a topic that is not only currently very important, but much, much more important in near times to come. A topic that is relating to the notion of climate change, and not only a one-on-one notion of climate change. We are going to discuss this very, very important future shaping topic of climate change for the whole humanity in the view of what the current world is now, which is a multipolar economic world that is being driven by the ideas of SDGs, and of course, in the whole realm of this unforeseen pandemic that the world has seen over the last 100 years or so. So it's a very interesting topic. Topic that is a close to my heart topic that means a lot, because I believe that this is where the youth of the countries, particularly the Muslim youth, will have a lot to add. And this is why I'm being very, very preemptive and very, very proactive to formally project, launch, and promote such healthy discussions on the topic. And congratulations to TAIF to be very, very discerned in making sure that these topics are being projected via expert opinions in a multi-log fashion, in a discussive fashion, to end up reaching healthy understanding and healthy conclusions and healthy whereabouts for the current and the future dynamics, how to mitigate, manage, and address this very, very important future shaping, humans' life shaping issue that is our own hands. So let me just very quickly start, and let me start by introducing what I mean, because we want to study climate change within the realm of multipolarity, within the realm of the concept of SDGs, and of course, the pandemic marred world. What it means when I say multipolarity. Multipolarity, put it simply, there's a lot of work being going on over this, and this is now a fact that the world, particularly when it comes to its economic parlance and economic dynamics, the world these days is no more a unipolar economy, where US, perhaps Japan, were the main poles of driving the overall global economic outcomes. Right now, the world, as we see, particularly from the last decade onwards, and more so right now, and particularly in the next few years, it is going to completely transform, if not already transform itself into what we call as a multipolar economic world, where there'll be more economic centers that will be driving the global economic dynamics towards desired ends. So it will not be a US dominated, a US pole-led or a unipolar multi-economy. It'll be US, it'll be China, it'll be Russia, it'll be other equally potent centers of global economy. So the mass of the global economy, the energy of the global economy, the leadership of the global economy is going to be well spread out, so that there'll be multi-poles that would be driving the global economy, the global growth. And this is what we mean, that the world now is a multipolar global economy. Now, keep this concept in mind. I've tried to put it as simply as I could. A lot of work is being done on the efficacy of multipolar economy, how it's been developing, and what it means politically and otherwise as well. I don't want to go into that, but just the basic concept. This is what we mean, that the world right now is being driven by multipolar, and the balance is now shifting from a solo version of global economy to a multipolar, multi-schemed version of global economy. It's very well spread out. We call it in the language of portfolio diversification, is well spread out the global economic risk. On top of it, what it does is that the more multipolar the economy or the world becomes, the more intensely globalized it becomes. So much so that because there are more poles, any one pole sneezing or any one pole having a butterfly effect, the speed of that effect or that ripple effects or that butterfly flapping wings effect spread so fast and so wide and so instantly that this is what I mean, that it is now become a very, very intensely globalized world. So a multipolar world means a much more intensified globalized world where not only growth expression is fast, but non-growth expression factors are also equally fast. And hence, the complexity, the interconnectedness of the whole globe, whole world is very tight now these days. This is number two. Number three, as a result, when the experts were reviewing the whole global affairs, and this is pre-pandemic, United Nations, as they do every now and then, came up with this notion of which we also know as UN SDGs. So to achieve UN SDGs, this massive global agenda, and to do it in an absolutely tightly connected world, a world that as multipolar world, was already thought to be, quite a task, to have all the stakeholders join hands together, work together towards these 14, 15, 23 goals, whatever you have, and then go full throttle in achieving these goals in a phase-by-phase manner. Little did we know that come 2020, the world will face a global pandemic. Of course, what COVID has done, the catastrophe and the human cost, the health cost, even the economic cost, our deepened sympathies goes to those who suffered from this health crisis, who are suffering from this health crisis, who have lost their loved ones. Equally, at the same time, our profound appreciation to all the folks who are busy rescuing us, the medical staff, the governments, the non-government institution, whoever is busy, making sure that they rescue the world and bring it back to normal ASAP. So to achieve what was meant by UN SDGs for a multipolar economic world, that too, on top of it, extremely tightly globalized, interconnected world where one sneeze can spread at the speed of light much more faster than what it was in a unipolar version. All of this was already a Herculean task, but then come the COVID situation, and that task is now even much more Herculean. So first you have to address a pandemic situation. You have to not only address it, you have to vaccinate yourself out of it, and then you have to reassess what the world has lost, what damages it has caused, health-wise and otherwise, economic-wise as well. Then try and address those damages. And then the fourth or fifth stage would be now think of coming back to the previous normal or even the new normal, or adjust to it. So it's not a small thing that has hit the world. The pandemic that is still going on at its whatever shape it is right now. I mean, some countries are at the verge of facing third or fourth wave. Some are at the verge of controlling it, and so on and so forth. To achieve your original aims, to deliver UN SDG goals in a multipolar environment, in an interconnected, globalized world, which is now marred with a COVID pandemic situation, the task has become much, much, much more Herculean. So much so that and I'm going to talk only about the economic and financial aspects, so much so that now the world has first addressed 4 or 5 stages of getting and fighting itself out of COVID, and then come back to its original shape, what it was before pre-COVID, if it does become its original shape, and then move on from there onwards as it was pre-COVID. This is number one. Number two, COVID or no COVID, COVID or no COVID, even when the global economies were sitting together and trying to not only craft, but then plan addressing UN SDGs and achieving UN SDGs, they were already struggling with the mismatch of the economic and financial mechanics. So this is pre-COVID. COVID just came a year or so ago. Even pre-COVID, when there was an effort being made not only to craft, but also achieve and implement UN SDGs in a multipolar and a tightly knitted global world, one of the factors that was becoming very prominent, causing a massive mismatch, was that to achieve UN SDGs in a full-fledged manner, in a phased manner on top of that, economically at least, you need a system, a financial and economic system, be it operating in a uni or a multipolar world, that sort of supports the achievement and does not cause a mismatch. So before the COVID situation, the world was already grappling and understanding and realizing that there is something missing, whereas the UN SDG goals that are meant to give you economic stability and economic prosperity in terms of human development goals, which is all what UN SDG is about, one of the factors that they were facing whenever they were attempted to implement it, this is pre-corona, was this huge mismatch that was being caused by the lack of having a suitable and applicable financial system that ideally suits the mechanics and reciprocal mechanics. It's a feedback loop between the financial system and the UN SDGs and vice versa, so that in synergy, the financial system supports UN SDGs, and in turn, UN SDGs supports financial system, and together they move forward in a tightly knitted, unipolar global world. Now, there is this concept in Quran I want to introduce called Yamhaq. Yamhaq is a concept that is present in Al-Baqarah, ayah 276. Folks who are familiar with the Islamic notions, folks who are familiar with the Islamic scriptures, they would know that in ayah 276 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Yamhaq kullahu riba, it also says wa yurbi sadaqat, but I want to focus on this, introduce this concept of Yamhaq, and you will see why I want to introduce this concept, because the idea is COVID or no COVID. Let's go pre-COVID, as I mentioned. The world was already grappling with a financial architecture that was not suiting its objective, particularly when it comes to UN SDGs. The world realized that the financial system does not have the right attributes or right efficacies to enable the UN SDGs. And as a result, what the Islamic scholars, or the scholars who are proponent of a system that is a much better version of a current system, and what that system is called, of course, they call it Islamic finance, they realize that the current system is a cause, what Quran has already mentioned 1400 years ago, more than 1400 years ago, as a matter of fact, called the concept of Yamhaq. What does Yamhaq means? I'm trying to be as simple as I can. Now, this concept means downfall. And it's not a normal downfall, folks. It's a downfall that is non-linear in nature. The more it goes down, the faster it goes down. It's a non-linear, sudden downfall. The issue with the financial system that is based on the interest-bearing debt mechanics, which has already been informed to us by Quran in ayah 276, Yamhaqullahu, the mahak. The Quran has informed us that a system that is driven by the financial mechanics of what is interest-bearing debt mechanics will always face non-linear downfall, mahak. And this is exactly what the situation that the world was facing. That was more intrinsic, mahak. So the globe, a multipolar, tightly knitted globe, to grow the way it wanted to grow, driven by UN SDGs, it was already facing a Yamhaq from the financial world, the financial mechanics, the financial rules that is following, interest-bearing debt financial system. On top of it came the Yamhaq of COVID. Though external, there are theories out there who say also it's man-made or not natural, etc., etc. It is now two Yamhaqs that the world is facing, double Yamhaq. First, the inherent Yamhaq of the interest-bearing debt finance that was causing a huge mismatch, a huge issue, so that it is not allowing the world to reach the full potentials of a multipolar, tightly globalized economic world. Number two, now you're facing the mahak or Yamhaq of COVID situation. So if I want to achieve the maximum out of a beautifully knitted, globalized, multipolar world and drive it through towards the aims of SDGs for more human development and and unified prosperity of the world, I am faced with a mismatched financial system that is giving me economic and financial yamhaks. And now I'm faced with a pandemic yamhak that is not only causing me economic and financial yamhaks, but also causing me simultaneous medical yamhaks as well, or health-wise mahaks. We call it mahak or yamhak. Two. The third one, guys, which is the essence of today's discussion, is what we call, so this is the mahak. This is the result of the mahak, overall mahak, the yamhak that has been caused by financial system on top of it, and an intrinsically unstable financial system now being attacked by an external, let's assume it's external factor called the pandemic factor. So now you have double the yamhak, the financial yamhak already on top of it. Now that is being wrapped up by the pandemic yamhak. So it's double the downfall. So things are much worse economically and now health-wise and otherwise, but we're talking about economically as it was never been before. So this is the whole situation of this twin mahak or twin yamhak that are twin sources of intensifying and accelerating further the non-linear sudden downfalls that the world is facing these days. And it's guys, I mean, it's no joke. As I mentioned, there are 4 or 5 layers of trying to fix this yamhak, which you're not going to fix because it's yamhak, and Quran has already mentioned that. To fix that, you have to readjust your structures. You have to go through 4 or 5 layers of adjustment then to reach your pre-COVID original position and then start removing from it. So it's a very messy situation, and this slide tells you the results of these non-linear downfalls. The third yamhak, which to me is the most devastating yamhak, and I mean, it's going to be a deciding factor for the future of humans, is the yamhak of climate change. It's the third. So we talked about the inherent yamhak of the financial system, that is interest-bearing debt finance. Quran has already mentioned that. Folks who are familiar with the Islamic scriptures, yamhaqullahu riba. So any financial system that is driven or based itself on interest-bearing debt finance is definitely going to face a non-linear sudden downfall yamhak, yamhaqullahu riba. On top of it was this pandemic yamhak. These are fixable. I mean, financial system can be fixed. Try for a better financial system. You would definitely see, if you don't try, at least you are coming with Basels. Right now there are talks about Basel IV. I'm guessing, by the time my children are my age, they will be Basel 25 and whatnot. But at least something is being done to humanly possible fix it. You end up fixing it or you end up worsening it, time tells, but at least something humanly you can still do to try and address that yamhak. You may not, but at least something is being done. Pandemic, that yamhak, at least something you can do. Vaccines are being invented. You have these SOPs vis-a-vis fighting corona. Everybody has to wear a mask, the distance, the social activity, the curfews, the lockdowns. These are those means or modes where you're humanly trying to address that yamhak. But this third yamhak, guys, the climate change yamhak, is a yamhak that the world has never seen before. Yamhak of financial system crisis, you have seen it many times. The last biggest was in 08-09. Yamhak of pandemic or epidemics, you've seen these many times. Of course, I mean, there was Spanish flu that was 80 or 100 years ago, but world is a little bit, I mean, it's not totally new to the world, these mahaks. But the climate change mahak is absolutely unprecedented. This is the critical yamhak that will shape the future of the world. Either it's going to be a boon or a bane shaped multipolar economic world. Either it's going to be one of a Hollywood flicks that show you the world has been destroyed and machines have taken control, and even that is a catastrophe and stuff like that. There are a number of Hollywood movies that have depicted such a scenario, or a system that is going to invent itself out of it and even try and address the mahak of climate change. Remember, as humans, again, those who are familiar with the Quranic scripture, they are all very clear that humans are among the best, if not, as a matter of fact, they are the best creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are titled as Ashraf al-Makhluqat. Ashraf in English means, let's say put in simple English, the best among creation. So anybody, any creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has this intrinsic ashrafness, who has this intrinsic capacity to find solutions to get out of holes, are humans. So when Allah gives us these mahaks, and I tell you something, no yamhak, hardly any. We are living in 2021. You know, azab, as we call it in Arabic, times of gone are the days of azab, where, you know, the nations were punished, and the world and the earth used to be turned upside down, and there were fireballs falling from the sky and all this and that. Gone are those days, the days of classic azab. So the supplication of a classic yamhak, that is azab, God, Allah driven yamhak 101, is no more. So all the mahaks, or all the yamhaks that human beings face, or humankind faces, and as a result other creations also face, are self-inflicted. So financial yamhak, nature has nothing to do with that. Remember, this is a very important point. All the yamhaks, all the non-linear downfalls or catastrophes that have changed the human lives that we are facing are all man-made yamhaks. Natural yamhaks in form of 101 azab yamhak or 101 downfalls, gone are those days. So now all the mahaks, all the non-linear downfalls that we are or we may face are a result of our own doings. We asked for it. Similar is the issue with climate change. And again, I'm just trying to focus myself on the financial and economic side of the affairs. So this is a third but most powerful, most unforeseen, unprecedented, and unpredictable yam. The other mahaks, the other yamhaks, for example, the financial yam, they used to give you black swan events. I don't know how many people are familiar with this concept, almost 10 years old concept called black swans in the financial world. Black swans are those events that are the probability of which happening is very, very minimal, but if they do happen, if they do ever happen, their impact is huge. They are also called as fat-tailed event in this bell-shaped normal curve distribution. The other kind of yamhaks, even the pandemic yamhak, used to give you black swan events. Events that have huge impact, but the chances of them occurring is close to zero, very minimal, not routine events. So the financial yamhak or the pandemic yamhak are more black swan categories of outcomes or events that humans have faced. Remember, inflicted by their own selves. The climate change yamhak are not only going to give you black swan events, but they are also going to give you now what they now call as green swan events. Green swan means relate events, fat-tailed events or low probability events related to climate change. So these green swan, the mahak or the yamhak, all these black or green swan events are an evidence of mahak or yamhak already happening. Yamhak, to put it in a simple language, are black swan and green swan events. If they increase more, then you have a total downfall. The whole system collapses. Individual yamhaks or black or green swan events, when they combine together, system collapses. So now there is a new notion in the world parlance or in the world jargon called green swan events. The green mahak, let's call it the green yamhaks. Again, I'm telling you, this is a yamhak category which the world has not seen before. They don't know what's going to happen. Scale of which is quantum times more heavier or more bigger in impact than any financial or any pandemic black swan. Green swans are much more dangerous than what their cousin black swans are. Again, I'm telling you, all of this is human inflicted. But at the same time, the same humans are ashraf in nature, best of the creation. If anybody can tame these yamhaks, if anybody can reverse these yamhaks, reverse these black and now upcoming green swan events, that capacity only rests with human. They are the ashraf creation. How are we going to do that? Surely we can do that if we commit ourselves to it, if we focus ourselves in. I'll give some suggestions, but of course, a lot more. I want to keep this session very, very introductory because I don't want to go really high end into climate change discussion. I want to first build the initial phase of understanding what is at our hands. What is it actually? What is that we are going to face, or if not already started to face? I can go fourth, fifth, sixth level of discussion, but this is not what I tend to do because this is such a new topic as compared to financial crisis or even now pandemic. It is such and a much more important topic that basic understanding of it is the most crucial for our current and future dynamics. It's very, very important. So I want to keep this discussion intentionally very 101 so that basic clarity is instilled, inshallah ta'ala, in as many as possible with the help of Allah. So this third category of yamhak, the most devastating or the most unprecedented yamhak, is on top of us. In the financial sector, people who are aware of what devastation it can cause for the financial sector, they have already started to term as climate Minsky moment. I don't know how many of you are aware of the Minsky moment. Minsky moment means when there is utter collapse, asset prices collapse, stocks as assets, this, that, etc., etc. This is called Minsky moment. Means in the real Minsky moment, it terms financial crisis, the financial yamma. But they have the financial people, they have related the same concept, and they said we are now facing towards a climate Minsky moment, where effects of climate change is going to be financially extremely devastating. Nothing the world has seen. They will not only create financial crisis, they may not only create pandemic crisis, they will create so many other forms of crisis. Managing them, if not done something right now, would be next to impossible, if not impossible. They are already terming this as climate Minsky moment for the financial sector. As I mentioned, climate change do not go ideally. Why do they say that it's a climate Minsky moment? Because folks who have actually understood the inherent yamhak's ability or instability of the financial system, they know that if a multipolar economic system is driven by the rules of capitalism, that is based on interest-bearing debt finance, and now it goes into the realm of climate change, there is no way out, because capitalism thrives itself on creating instability. It has to grow by imploding itself. So it implodes and grows, it implodes and grows. Why? Because it gives rise to commodification, unchecked financialization. I'm just being very 101 over here. This itself is a whole session to explain capitalism and these terminologies that I'm using, where the nature of capitalist or anybody who's a stakeholder in this capitalist system, be it government or non-government, the nature is acquisitive and process is accumulative. It's all about me first, accumulate as much as you can. And that makes your nature very acquisitive. Every time you're hungry for more. And so much so that you go for unchecked commodification and hence unchecked financialization. And this is how the system grows. It inflates and busts from inside out, implodes and moves on. Again, the cycle, it implodes. So here the implosion is not external factor, is internal implosion. In Mahak is done inside out. It's an internal inverted pyramid yamhak. Now on top of it is an external, if we assume it's an external, yamhak of course, pandemic and stuff like. So capitalism is not mandated naturally to manage climate change risks or a yamhak of climate change. This is why people are worried about not a normal Minsky moment that the world every 10 years faces. The world is worried about now a climate Minsky moment, because it knows a system that is inherently always ready to implode, now being attacked by a pandemic, let alone pandemic, it is now being attacked by climate change. The climate Minsky moment is going to be extremely huge, extremely huge. This is why there is a search among economic and financial experts that while we are going to brace ourselves for climate change risks, we must at least have an absorption capacity in our economic system, in our economic or financial modeling, that the risk, while being mitigated or adopting, at least absorbed a little more better as compared to a capitalistic system that is already ready to implode. But the other externalities, including the climate change, green swan, will further ignite the explosion, and it will implode in such a big way that, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, a planet, if you have seen a video, planet imploding and becoming a black hole. I don't know if you're familiar with this video. So it will suck in everything together. If climate change devastation is caused in an economic, multipolar, tightly globalized system that is driven by a capitalistic, interest-bearing debt financial system. You see how the connectivity is being done. So if you want to fight capitalism, if you want to avoid the Yamhak or the climate Minsky moment, you must at least have your prerequisites, the right, correct prerequisites ready, so that at least it not only enables you to mitigate or adapt or manage the climate change risk, you can't avoid them. They're there, they're coming. But at the same time, have a better absorption capacity rather than an imploding capacity of a system. It's very, very important. And this is why, like a pandemic, climate risk is an expected, unexpected event. Climate risk can be known to impose cost, but measuring and predicting them requires probabilistic assumptions. Of course, these are first ever time that such probability estimates are going to be calculated. Climate risk is currently estimated to pose cost in the tens of trillions of dollars were already. It is yet to take shape, but already trillions of dollars of estimates are being projected. And while the current pandemic was foreseeable, the unexpected systemic risk arising from the coronavirus economic collapse is useful baseline for comparison. And air costs already are top of $9 trillion. And you can see, I mean, this is a self-explanatory slide that I did. So what it means, you see, I mean, at this, you have to understand, guys, that with climate change, you know, the dimension of risks also change. In climate change, why is it much more worrisome, is the fact that you're not going to face risks that you are familiar with. Pandemic risk, what? Health, economic risk, 101 stuff, sometimes a little more. You can still fight your way out. Financial risk, been there, done that. You know, I mean, whenever the financial crisis, yes, impact is much more, but you know, Basel IV, Basel III, other strategies, been there, done that sort of a stuff. Climate change, because it's totally fresh to the understanding of the world, even the risks of climate change are different. And at base level, there are two kinds of risk. One is called physical risk, the other is called transition risk. Again, I'm trying to keep it very 101 so that you understand. So when you're going to face climate change, the category of risks that you're going to face are also going to be different. The risks of green swans, they are called physical climate change risk and transition climate change risk. These categories of risk you have never seen before or heard before. Now, physical climate change, very simply put, physical climate change risk are the physical disastrous risk. For example, physical damage due to climate change disturbances, tsunami, heavy rainfall, heavy snow falling, you know, heat waves, you know, building collapses, earthquakes, and stuff like these natural imbalances that are going to be created. Water level rising, you know, arid conditions, food and water shortage. You know, I mean, these are those physical that you can see in front of you happen. Physical risk, man oh man, easy to say, but the cost and the power and the you know, I mean, facing these risks is just, you know, I mean, gives you you know, shock waves in your bloodstream when you even talk about these risks. You know, there's a danger now. There's a danger now that, the sooner these risks are going to be materialized, physical, there is something that you're going to call as, you must have heard about political refugees or war refugees or other categories of refugees. You are soon going to have something called as climate refugees, where if a certain country or region is facing these risks of climate change and it is unable to mitigate, and man, oh man, when they are going to come, they are going to come. This is what Yamhak is. You will not have time, okay, today one building collapse, okay, I'll have 6 months to reassess and then do. No. It is Yamhak. The issue with Yamhak is when it happens and it destroys everything in a matter of minutes. You do not have a second chance. When Mahak it's not a linear downfall where it goes very smoothly. Downfall is going very smoothly. No, it is a sudden downfall, abrupt. The more it goes down, the more devastation happens, the faster it happens. So there is no breathing space with climate change risk realization. You will not have a second chance. The second category is transition risk, guys. This is why it's so important for us to understand. Transition risks are risks that there are two dimensions of transition risk. First of all, transition risk is when I am, for example, transiting myself from one mode of work, and now because of climate change, I have to transit to another mode of work. So previously I was using, let's say, bricks to create building. Now, because of climate change, government banned the creation of bricks because they add to climate change disturbances and risk. So I have to readjust, reassess, and remodel myself to a completely new transition of how I can make buildings. So I have to come up with new mechanics, new materials, and that is its own additional risk. This is number one, transition. So I'm transiting because of climate change. I'm transiting from one business model to another much more climate change friendly business model because the previous one was not. And I'm forced to do that. And this shifting has its own risks, pre, during, and post shifting. The second category of transition risk is that if I were trying to mitigate physical risk, and all of a sudden a transition risk due to climate change simultaneously is happening. So I have to now suddenly shift my focus from managing physical risk and now look somewhere else simultaneously to try, one fire is here and straight away I have a double bigger fire over there. So my focus is shifting now. Even if I was trying to find a technology solution to better mitigate a physical or a first category of transition risk, all of a sudden, the second category of transition risk already happened, and I was facing with one part of fire. I am now facing with three other simultaneous fire parts, and I have to now do this fire extinguishing at 4 or 5 times at the same time. So this is what so my focus shift, my energy, my focus, my routine shifted. So it's a messy situation, right? It's a messy situation. So this is another form of transition risk where focus and your alignment shift from one risk to the other at a very quick succession, if not simultaneously. Remember, there is no breathing space when these climate change risks happen. This is not a normal yamhak that you're used to, a financial or now a pandemic yamhak. This is a climate change yamhak. But at the same time, I'm qualifying my statement. If anybody can address, mitigate, or manage or adopt to these risks, which I'll talk about later on, it's humans, because they are made ashraf. They have this capacity. They have to live up to their ashrafness to fight these dangers. Something about, effects on GCC Oman, I can tell you, you can read this paragraph that Oman or GCC itself are already, facing some issues due to climate change. There is already, since 1975 onwards, there is already an increase in temperature overall from 1.5 to 2 degrees. Summers are much more hotter. Right now, I'm sitting at 44, and that too at the end of May. So overall, there is an increase in temperature already in the GCC region, Oman included, at least 2 degrees more than normal. There are rising sea levels already. Water availability is becoming an issue. Biodiversity, slowly showing effects, in some parts a little more. There is desertification, agricultural issues. So a lot is already shaping up. I was reading one report the other day, I think 4 or 6 months ago, in one of the magazines when when the flights were a little more open. So in the Pacific region, in the Pacific Ocean from the US side, the temperature of that ocean has increased by, I think, 0.5 or at maximum 1%. So that region used to habitat migrating birds. So normally what happened was that a migrating flock of birds used to pass over that ocean, and then while passing through, they used to go down and sip and some water, either to catch fish or drink the water, and then fly back and to their destination. That little, very minute rise in temperature, this is how delicate the balance of nature is. And I will show you some of the Quranic verses that talks about and clearly tells that it is we who are responsible for facing these green swans. So even a little bit of hardly 1 degree of climate of temperature difference of that ocean water, the same birds, when they used to drink water, thousands and thousands of them died because their beaks are made for a certain degree temperature of that water. A little bit of disturbance in that temperature, their beaks couldn't adjust to that. And when they used to sip or drink that water, because the beaks are made for a certain degree of temperature, rise in that temperature was the effect of causing their deaths. So this is how delicate the balance is, folks. So this is a dangerous situation. A lot has to be done. And as I mentioned, humans are the only Ashraf creation that they can address this situation. Oman, for example, is a member of so many climate change movement from UN, from the Kyoto Accords, protocols, to Vienna Convention, to the Paris Accord, to Montreal protocols, preservation of ozone layer, a UN environment program, all are signatories, and Oman is working on a blueprint right now as we speak to address its climate change effect and combat it. As I mentioned, world is now getting attentive towards it, but my guess is the attentiveness should be done much more urgently. There is urgent need. There is no time to lose. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand, this map is so fast. The time dimension, it has its own time dimension. It does not meet the time dimension of the world. There is no time. Every day is important. And this is why my focus on projecting the discussion of climate change is much, much more important than even fintech, for example. I think, technology, yes, is important, but what to do with that technology if you don't have an earth to live in? So, so climate change is extremely on war footings. We have to be attentive to it and try and address this. Countries are doing that. Pakistan is a classic example. It appears to be leading the way. The world is acknowledging its measures. The world is trying to follow its measures. It's using it as a model. There is a formal national political drive. It's among the very few countries who have taken it so serious proactively. The urgency that I'm trying to refer to, I must say that there is more urgency. But Pakistan is one country that is giving us an example of what relative urgency is. There's a national political drive under this tagline of clean and green Pakistan to address proactively climate change issues. Why? Because they don't have choice. They least contribute to climate change issues or a cause of climate change effects, but they are number 7 in facing the devastation of climate change. Can you believe this imbalance? So there are other 40 countries who are responsible for the climate change effects, and all are developing status or developed countries. But who faces the mess? The third world countries, and Pakistan is one of them. So because of this situation, there is a political and national level urgency. Formal regime has been adopted in Pakistan. Remember, we are all Ashraf human beings, and if anybody can address climate change, Yamhak or green swans, it's humans. And Pakistanis are trying to lead the way. Beautiful programs like the 10 billion tree tsunami. They have realized that one way of proactively absorbing or mitigating or delaying the devastation of climate change or lessening it to an extent, is to have plant as many, make it as much green the planet Earth as we can. So 10 billion trees over the period of next 5 years. 1 billion just yesterday, I believe, has been completed. There is a plan for the overall 25% of conversion to renewable energy in the system. So by in the next few years, they are making sure that the full energy system that the country has, 25% of it will shift to renewable energy, another 16% to water energy, and trying to reduce their reliance on, pollutant or hydrocarbon based energy. By 2030, the country is trying to shift 50% to electric cars. There is now something called as green jobs, green investments, green creation. 5th of June, I believe, Pakistan is the first ever time will be hosting this very, very huge event under the United Nations called the World Environment Day, hosted by Pakistan as a result of its leadership way in addressing climate change. The world is acknowledging it. A number of, even WHO and UN has acknowledged it as a formal model to copy for the rest of the world. Pope Francis would be among the main guests, UN Secretary General, and so on and so forth. So this is one example of how, our ashrafness is hinted towards fighting climate change. I don't want to go to that. Again, UN SDGs. Now, to cut the story short, guys, remember, we have talked about challenges, and look at the challenges over here. One of the challenge that sort of diverts our focus on living up to our reputation and capacity of being ashrafness and trying to fight this climate change is this tussle, the political dilemma tussle between emerging versus the developing/developed world. The needs of both the worlds is different. Emerging, developed world or developing world is at a different stage. They have already achieved, and there has been a source of much more climate devastation, as a matter of fact, and greenhouse gases and whatnot. To them, they're at a certain stage of development. The others need that development. So there are two models, there are two worlds operating, which is causing a political tussle and a financial dilemma that is subduing a unified approach of fighting climate risks and climate change, or mitigate them, and trying and put a bar in front of these black swans. This political dilemma is a huge bane in the overall global regime towards climate change addressing, is that the need fulfillment of the world, both the poles, is different. One pole is trying to grow, the other is already or has already grown, but the recipe of growth is the same. One has used so much natural resources in such a devastating, irresponsible manner that growth, i.e. the developed countries' growth, has been a cause of climate change disruption. Recipe is the same. Now the emerging world wants to use the same model for them to get a growth status, to come out of a third world status. Recipe is the same. Now the developed world is trying to force its way on the emerging world that if you grow, you will destroy the climate much more. You will destroy the natural processes, the natural balances much more. So don't grow. But they have to grow because more than half of the world population and more than half of the world poor population lives there. So they don't have choice. They are in the growth, developing, or emerging status. So they have to use the same recipe, even at the cost of destroying the climate, or not preserving the climate or destroying the natural balance. So there is this huge political tussle or dilemma going on, where one group is already developed due to destroying the climate, and the other group is trying to develop, thinking that it is their turn to destroy the climate so that they can reach the developed phase. So it's a mess over here, and this is that dilemma that is dampening a unified effort towards climate change. And Donald Trump was was one episode that evidenced such a dampened approach. He wanted growth no matter what. This is why he was still failing to sign this Paris Accord or, the Kyoto protocols and stuff. They are a member, all of them are a member. But remember, this is a multipolar economic world now, not a unipolar economic world. So if 3 or 4 economies decide, the whole world will face the same trajectory. So this is why proactively understanding this and understanding the whole scenario in a 360-degree manner, geopolitics included, you will understand what are the missing pieces of the puzzle and how the overall picture is being shaped. And if we still underperform our ashrafness, what are the root causes of that underperformance? Because remember, it's a globalized world. We underperform. We face massive climate change risk. One country faces it, the rest of the world faces it like in the speed of light. Climate refugees and all that I've just mentioned. One other thing that could perhaps be causing a little less urgency or non-seriousness or adding to this political or financial growth dilemmas of the whole world, causing a rift in achieving a unification towards addressing this yamhak of climate change, is people are still not aware of the devastation that's coming, the yamhak of green swans that are coming. There is no reliable, concrete, comprehensive data that scientists or experts can use to show and spread this urgent awareness that this is what financial players you should do. This is the government. This is what you should do. This is what's coming up. So lack of that sort of data is still, making people not take a little non-serious, or should I say, a little less urgent. And at the same time, whatever solutions that you think should come from the financial or economic sector, so that there are more economic absorption capacities in the world, let alone the financial architecture that we've spoken about, having a much more non-yamhak prone financial system. The focus on social finance has to increase too. Little, if any, focus is given to social finance. All the financial solutions or economic solutions that the world talks about in addressing or coming out from all of the mahaks, be it financial or pandemic or even a climate change yamhak, all those financial economic models, country-wise or region-wise or individuals-wise as well, or governments-wise as well, they have this commercial gains at the end of the day attached behind them. So if I want to commit myself, there must be a commercial incentive for me to go ahead giving a financial policy or prescription that will address the situation. Unless I don't have that commercial gain coming to me, I still don't show that interest. This is why solutions, particularly from the financial or economic arena, should have to rely on bringing social financial solutions that has less commercial gains and more range and scope and scale to address the needs and dynamics of what is coming up in terms of yamhak. Because at the end of the day, this is a humanitarian crisis that you're talking about. So those modes of economic and finance that automatically, direct or indirect, brings commercial gains attached to it and sort of stimulate or induced countries or people or decision makers to decide either go for unification or a pseudo unification or a lesser unification, or either go to show full ashrafness or a subdued ashraf or no ashrafness to mitigate climate change, is a deciding factor. So remove that incentive structure and bring social finance into focus. And when it comes to Islamic finance, Islamic social finance, man oh man, it is as potent as social finance gets. A mother of social finances, the way it addresses. A thing or two more about Islamic finance is that, sometimes there is this, this is where it's a 40-year-old phenomena. I don't want to take it's a new phenomena. I just feel sad when, when particularly Islamic experts, I don't know if they are too much, affected or influenced by Western philosophical thought processes, or they have been groomed inside, or they are obscured, or they don't want to spend energy or time. Remember, guys, be it whatever you name it, blue, green, purple, orange, yellow economy, whatever it is, Islamic finance is a system that has 14 or 100 years ago already is so sensitive to greenness or the climate preservation of the whole world, of the whole universe, even non-human creations, that it is a system that is inbuilt or auto-built to preserve and address climate change, to secure, the nature balance. I give an example of Maqasid al-Shariah, the 5 Maqasid. First of all, I believe that given the new dynamics, pandemic, and even climate issues, green swans coming up, the Maqasid information has to be, or understanding has to be readjusted, renewed to align itself and upgrade itself to address or expand itself to address these new normals or new dimensions of the 2021 onward world. Number 2, even if you implement 101 maqasid, you would realize that if I preserve those maqasid, the 5 main maqasid, I'm actually one way or the other preserving my society as well as, the whole notion of the society, including the climate of the society too, be it physical or non-physical climate. So this includes UN SDGs automatically, this includes SRI automatically, this includes environmental and sustainment and governance goals, whatever name you call it. The beauty of the Islamic economic system is it's so unique that it auto addresses all of these things. So it sort of shames me, or sort of embarrasses me, to say the least, when I see people and experts, known experts, who start terming, I don't have any problem giving a color to the economy, and these days green economy or green finance, but then don't lose this basic traction or basic linkage that that call it, Islamic finance is already green finance. Don't make green finance as an independent movement and then bring Islamic into it. It's already there. This is what my problem. I don't have an issue calling it green finance or green economy or whatever, or green swans or whatever. I love the word green, it's okay. But when it comes to green finance or green economy or green financial solutions, Islamic finance is already green. So if you want to even say that, I'm just giving you an example that Maqasid Sharia, if you preserve them even in a 101 fashion, climate preservation is already a part. So, these things are extremely important. I've given you some Quranic verses which actually talk about our behavior and how we are responsible in terms of disrupting climate or balance of nature or preserving climate. A number of ahadiths, there is a famous one that says that even you can see Yom al-Qiyamah or Day of Judgment coming, and you're planting the tree, plant the tree. Even if you see in front of you the Day of Judgment is coming. A number of other prophetic traditions are there. So much so that, there was an Islamic climate change declaration. I don't know how many people are aware of this. In 2015, there has been an Islamic climate change declaration that actually gave way to Paris Accord in terms of aligning itself towards it or implementing it. I don't know how many people are aware of that. A lot of work has been done. So don't come up with new jargons and give it as if it's a new movement. Such movements, such intricacies, such capacities are already there in the Islamic system, be it you go for a mitigation or an adaptation approach in terms of climate change. And guess what? At least for countries like Oman or Pakistan who are taking the lead in addressing climate change, this can be a source of new FDI, because what you can do is this chance is to attract newer kind of FDI in form of climate finance by making itself the regional lead to be the center of climate management solutions serving itself and region. For example, Pakistan is in a better position to enjoy this status, and Pakistani progress too, and the regional progress too. Such finance can further be bifurcated into mitigating and adapting climate finance, or climate change. So countries now who can proactively address and have this political, mileage going into this alertness, they can secure themselves being the center or regional center of addressing climate change or being a source of climate change solutions, and can address climate finance, a finance that is meant to address climate change issues, be it through economic solutions or otherwise, and you can attract a lot of new kind of climate FDI into your country. All you need to do is to focus on climate change, become a solution provider for climate change, and run this status and serve the whole region and whole industries. This is so Dubai model. You can be a new Dubai, a new center of focus of FDI that is climate finance driven FDI. It's amazing. It's amazing. Social finance is one, and perhaps it is time, guys, perhaps it is time, and I don't want to, go into nitty gritty. Perhaps it is time also with this idea to have a special bank that is just for climate financing. You have IDB, you have World Bank, you have IMF, you have Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, and so on and so forth. I think time is right now to have a special global bank that can fund countries to fight climate change, and you can call it a special bank for climate finance. Such an important idea. I think this idea should be taken very, very seriously, as is the idea of transforming yourself into a country which affects climate FDI. Again, lack of system support and stuff like that. I'm giving you another solution of social finance and Islamic finance Waqf. You can have technology coming in and doing a fintech Waqf, and that Waqf fund, whatever it is collected, is going to be utilized to serve green economy. And I automatically mean Islamic economy that is focused on preserving initiatives that allow for preservation of climate change or improve the climate in nature. So, such social financial technology driven models can be used. I've just given you a blueprint of what that is. You can read it once the slides are going to be shared. Key takeaways, Islamic finance, guys, has to be understood in its right sense. Green finance or climate preservation is already an inbuilt part of Islamic finance. Quran is full of verses. Hadith is full of climate preservation. So much is the other, scriptural powerhouses of the Islamic culture that is readily auto-built and auto-piloted. On whatever you do, you have to make sure that simultaneously you preserve climate first. Do not destroy the balance of the nature. So a risk-sharing version 2 of a technology, social finance, financial inclusion, UN SDGs, and climate change focus understanding and then implementation of Islamic finance is the way forward. Because remember, no matter even if you're trying to address the climate change and all what is mentioned over here, social finance, SDGs, etc., if your financial architecture is still an architecture that is prone to cause MAC, like the interest-bearing debt financial architecture, you would still be on square one. So it means you have never moved. So bringing a Islamic finance version 2 that is necessarily driven by a risk-sharing based financial architecture, and then on top of it, it is oriented by technology and focuses also itself on social finance, UN SDGs, and of course, most importantly, climate preservation. You will have all the prerequisites ideally met to now start to prove your ashrafness and then address, with the help of Allah and His blessings, the climate change issues that are as devastating as the world has never known before. Time is right to also have a formal body that governs and administers not only Islamic social finance, like the AAOIFIs, like the IFSB. We should have a body that administers and governs Islamic social finance, and also, as I mentioned, a global bank for climate finance. Again, what we now know as UN SDGs, circular, blue or green economy at base are all Islamic economy, because Islamic economy automatically by itself more than 1400 years ago gave you an inbuilt version that addresses all of these and even more issues that we may not have seen right now. To accomplish this, to understand all of this the way I'm telling you, and particularly understand and implement a climate change driven version of a risk-sharing Islamic finance, which is oriented by technology, social finance, UN SDGs, in a multipolar, globally connected environment, you must have a human capital, a skilled breed that is well attuned and well trained, well formatted theoretically and practically on such notions. Make sure that, cybersecurity and climate change risks are now part of your syllabi. People, planet, and profit should be the now orientation of Maqasid al-Sharia. Maqasid al-Sharia should be readjusted and rebranded and re-understood from a planet, people, profit perspective that also amalgamate the new normals of technology and climate change perspective. If you readjust Maqasid from these angles or upgrade them, you will automatically achieve an Islamic finance version 2.0 that I have mentioned, and eventually be in a position to live the potential of your ashrafness, because you're the ashraf al-makhluqa. And with that, I want to thank you very much for listening to me, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Mr. Mughees, for this wonderful presentation. Very energizing and full of knowledge. And then the question that I can see in Q&A, perhaps you can see as well. And I believe you have answered them. If I may repeat the question from Brahman Khan. It says, can we specify the measure Islamic finance can take to tackle climate changes?
What was the question?
Can we specify the measures Islamic finance can take to tackle climate change?
Well, straight away, first thing first, you have to re-understand Islamic finance from its very notion that it is the system that provides you the right financial architecture, number one, that at least stops the financial yamhaq, that as is referred to in Al-Baqarah 276, yamhaqullah riba. So you will avoid, first of all, you'll have a right financial system that at least stops you facing one financial yamhaq, number one. Number two, remember, as I mentioned, the moment you orient Islamic finance driven by a Maqasid al-Sharia approach where planet comes first, which itself is there. It's nothing new. This is how Islamic system has inbuilt. It's auto there, where planet is first and then people and then profit. You will definitely have solutions that are there that self-administer and self-solve the problem. And all you need to do is to understand and implement that. Number of work is being done in the name of green economy or green finance, which is, as this is what I call it. Don't call it Islamic green finance. Keep calling it green finance, but do not forget its original linkage that Islamic finance is auto green finance, already green finance, be it whatever color you call it. So you will have the social financial mechanisms that are so well suited to proactively address, because remember, one of the things that I mentioned was that you would see is not only climate refugees, but I think I forgot to mention is a new breed of unemployed people that are being employed because of the effects of climate change in certain countries. And there'll be a lot of, such things happening. So social financial modes driven in a new age technology friendly manner can help proactively address the financial climate change effects or risks. Last but not the least, it's all about the mindset, folks. Right now, as I've been mentioning, we have to show urgency now. If we show urgency now, and if we are able to unified manner live up to our ashrafness, then it's all about us finding the solution. It's all there. The solutions are all there. It's all about implementing. So one way or the other is that, not only means wise, but ends wise as well, Islamic finance have this solution. And when you come up with a bank that is called Climate Finance Bank, that sort of adds on to your repertoire in addressing issues with climate change.
So one more question we have. You answered it in your last slide when you were covering it, but Sayyid Farah Sheikh, I think from Digital Islamic Economist, asking, kindly give a simple formula of green economy via Islamic social financing and Islamic economic system.
What is that?
Kindly give a simple formula of green economy via Islamic social financing and Islamic economic system.
So she wants a green formula from Islamic economics through social finance. Is that what it is?
Yeah, yes. Yes, this is, it's written in Q&A. If
Yeah.
you...
Yeah. So one way, as I just showed, I think you judged it right. One way is to show it, is to use the Waqf, the institution of Waqf in Islamic social finance, and orient it and implement it through technology. We call it Fintech Waqf. And there is something that we are already doing over here. A Fintech Waqf that is collected, created, and only mandated to proactively address climate change issues. So for example, if Pakistan is looking to a 10 billion tree tsunami, that Waqf fund can help employ people, giving them green jobs, which is one of the other initiatives of Pakistani economy, to help them plant trees. So you're addressing at least two goals from that social finance fintech driven Waqf fund, where people contribute money or whatever asset that you have. Even 10 rupees in Pakistan or 100 rupees can be your Waqf contribution through that technology platform, and though that could be channeled not only to create green jobs, but green investments, green modes of climate preservation, like the 10 billion trees, so on and so forth. So one way how I can model and implement, as a matter of fact, not only model, but it's already modeled, implement it, is through using Waqf as a social technology Waqf or fintech Waqf as a social finance mechanism, and then addressing climate preservation means and modes and issues.
MashaAllah, sir. If anybody want to ask a live question, you may raise hand. We'll take you live. Pradeep Bhatna have asked, what's the implication of green finance and green economy in the Islamic finance? You have explained this as well, but the question is about Sayyid Farah Sheikh is saying thank you to you for answering the question. But Pradeep Bhatna is asking, what is the implication of green finance and green economy in Islamic finance?
What is the Pradeep's question?
What is the implication of green finance and green economy in Islamic finance?
So implication, you see, I mean, Pradeep, I don't know if you've heard me before, but I've just mentioned, I really am not into, I mean, I like colors. You can see my slide right now. It has green, purple, blue, what's that, orange and red, so many colors in one slide. I'm a very colorful guy, and I have a wife who's an artist too, a very skillful and a famous one too. So I live in art gallery, so in colors. I don't have any problems with colors. My issue is, I know that Islamic/halal economy, that is for everybody. You don't need to be necessarily a Muslim to know the efficacy and the potency of what it can bring to you. It is already made to preserve climate. Remember, it is planet, people, and then profit. My issue is, if you approach planet, people, profit, or climate preservation first, and then start calling it green economy, fine. But on top of it, start calling it Islamic green economy. So this is, you are actually, you're doing, it's like you're using two names to mean the same thing. You understand that? So my issue is this, that whenever you use the word green economy, to me, Islamic financial or halal economic system already has greenness into it. So why call it Islamic green economy? You should project Islamic finance as a system that already addresses inbuilt green or climate preservation in it. This is how you should promote Islamic finance as per new demands. Climate change or climate preservation is not new to Islamic finance. 1400 years ago, the Islamic scriptures have already cautioned humans that if you do this, you will disturb the balance of nature and hence climate, and you will inflict havoc on yourself. This is very clear. I've just showed you some of the verses from the scriptures. There are a lot of prophetic hadiths that you can even search on Google. So more than 1400 years ago, such measures have already, the greenness has already been told to you. Now you call it green, purple, pink, I don't really care. But what I do get, conscious about, that This is a time to brand Islamic finance and brand it through its climate change size. It has solutions, inbuilt solution for climate change too. Why call it Islamic green economy or Islamic green finance? Keep calling it Islamic finance, but extra label it climate finance, Islamic finance for capital for climate preservation. Simple as that. If green sells, be it, but then don't lose your roots. If you're using the word green economy or green finance, at least qualify it that this is what it means for an Islamic finance expert. Don't call it Islamic green finance if two things are independent and you're joining two independent things and one and making as a one system and doing a service to it. You're doing a disservice. You're confusing others and distracting others and not letting others to actually understand what the real thing is. So this is what my issue is. I don't know if I've answered your question or not.
I would like to take Mr. Zaya. Mr. Zaya, if you're around.
Yes, I'm here. Just give me a second. I'm trying to adjust my.
Right. I see a lot of comments. You might see Mr. Mughees. People are thanking you for this energizing, mashallah, for this session. And then from top to bottom, I see only thank you. Wonderful presentation, important topic. What do you call valuable training? Mashallah. All the comments are all about praising the way you have delivered this speech. Over to you, Mr. Zaya.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Brother Mughees. Another exciting and passionate presentation from your side. Every time, we listen to you, we feel more energized and really you have the quality, mashallah, to make people stick to your discussion. So as I told you, I was driving in during this period, but I was listening to you all the time, and I think same is the feeling of all the others. I think again to summarize from where I started. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Mughees, that this is the only earth that we have in all this universe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created.
Yeah.
And climate change is something which is going to seriously harm our ability, impair our ability to live on this beautiful planet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for human beings. We have already destroyed it a lot. We need to be careful in future what we do, and there is a lot of guidance. There is lots of guidance which is already there in Quran and in the guidance that has been provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The book of guidance provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is full of guidance for human beings on how to deal with any matter, including the climate change. I thank you. I thank all the participants, all the respected participants once again. And yeah, my SN is drawing my attention that before I conclude, I would like to draw your attention towards the two new courses that we have launched. One is on IAPEF examination for SEPA preparatory classes. Another is for IAPEF examination for CSAA examination. And for those of you who are interested to appear in this exam, yesterday I think I mentioned the 50% discount. Today I can tell you that if you register for IAPEF exams which are going to happen during this year, like this one or the December one, but you have to register today and tomorrow, you may get a fee discount of 70% on IAPEF fee. This is a big discount. So you need to, for availing that discount, you need to register through TAIF for a UFE examination. The page Hassan is already showing. The page is www.taiflearning.com/IUFI. We look forward to you visiting that page. I once again thank Brother Mughees and all the respected participants for being here today. Let's work together to preserve the climate and to preserve this unique planet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us in this whole huge universe. We as human beings so far don't have any other home. Like people are looking for Mars and people are looking for other alternatives, but so far there is no alternative to the earth that we have. Brother Mughees, you want to say a few last sentences before I conclude?
Well, I mean, thank you very much, Zia Bhai, for this concluding remarks. And I totally agree with what you have just mentioned. And as I mentioned, I mean, to me, it's extremely important that these topics are understood first at the basic level. I don't want people to mess these topics up as well as they have messed up so many other important topics, including Islamic finance, where they start straight away from the 6th or 7th level of it. This is what my intention is. I want to make sure that the youth, at least my generation, grasp this topic from its very root, from its very base. Once you understand that, only then you move on and try and address it and understand it and implement the solution modes much more clearly and much more powerful. I am very hopeful that people are clear about what multipolar economic is. I'm very hopeful people are clear about what Yamhak is and what types of Yamhak we are facing. And the green swan climate change Yamhak, which is already on top of us, is the biggest that humans are going to face. And all of these mahaks are not natural at all. They are all self-inflicted. This is very, very important. I'm very hopeful that, there is an opportunity for any country, be it Pakistan or Oman. Pakistan is already making a name for itself in addressing climate change. I'm very hopeful that these countries look at these, upcoming swan events, be it black or green swan events, as an opportunity in disguise and live up to their human ashrafness, because this is an opportunity to also attract what I mentioned as FDI, which is climate finance or climate change driven FDI. And they can be the center of focus for their region as well as for the world, to be a source of providing climate management solutions or climate mitigation solutions, like perhaps what Pakistan is trying to do by hosting one of the very known conferences on 5th of June. I myself would try and attend that too. Focus on, social finance is extremely important, guys. Such an understood and under-addressed area. And last but not the least, time is important to reassess Islamic finance and live it now up to its, capacity of also having an inbuilt mechanics of climate preservation. Islamic finance is all about climate preservation from day one. It is about time that we should now start talking about this side of Islamic finance too, implementing it necessarily from its risk-sharing mode, which is UN SDGs and technology-oriented, focused on its notions of climate change. And as I mentioned, perhaps time is all there to come up with a global bank that is climate finance bank, and understood or re-understand and upgrade our understanding on the Maqasid side as well, from a planet, people, and profit perspective with technology and climate change in focus. And I believe these are such simple things to understand. If I could at least make people understand 30% of it, I think my job of this session is done. And thanks to you, Taif and Zia Bhai and team, for being so basir, so discerned in, projecting or helping project these important topics. May Allah bless all of you. Like what you did, the last topic that I did was the gaps in human capital. such an under-talked topic, if talked at all. And if it is talked, it is again talked at the 4th or 5th or 6th level. And same is, my worry is the same mess that may happen to this topic too, if not understood in the right way from the right side, rather than from a top-down approach. It has to be a bottom-up understanding. So this is what I'm happy about, that TAIF is always conscious about these things. And this is what makes me, happy about, synergizing with the endeavors of TAIF. And I hope that, may Allah give you more tawfiq in doing that, and all of us to, achieve these objectives in a very climate and a mass preservative manner, is what I'm saying. And I hope that, whenever there is this next chance, we'll be equally living to our standards of, igniting and reliving, not forgetting that we're all Ashraf and we are the one who can fight these, yamhaks that by again are man-made yamhaks, nothing to do with nature azab of it, 101 stuff. That's what my parting comments are.
Thank you very much, Brother Mughees, and thank you very much all once again. With humble request to remember us in your duas, and feel free to send us any comment or any suggestion or advice or guidance you may have. May Allah bless us all. May Allah make this world, this earth, may the sense prevail, and may we do things to preserve this environment, and may we hand over at least the world that was handed over in the same condition as our forefathers handed it over to us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much once again to all. This brings this session to an end. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This session is concluded. Assalamu alaikum.